You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, as always, brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN. Welcome to the New World Star Assurance that's been creating smiles since 1985. And they give you 30 solid years of solid partnership. So you can bank on them. I'm Samson Ladi Anyenini. And this morning, what's my take? Sometime but specifically on the 10th day of November or October 2015, I was on this show discussing matters that had to do with teachers. And there was a lady by the name Florence, and I don't want to give her full name, Florence. And she sent a text message, and this is what she said on that day. On the issue with teachers' unpaid salaries, I have taught for 3 years without salary, not even a penny. And this is what she said, and I shared it on the show. The Minister of Finance was here on the show and gave some excuse about what was happening and also suggested that some of these things were going to be taken care of. Well, she said that she had gone to the ministry and gone to the GES, and they were told that they were to be giving a quota by the Ministry of Finance, and that's why the question was directed to the finance minister at the time. She subsequently produced her appointment letters and everything to substantiate and to help me to verify that she was dealing with the truth, and she asked the minister to intervene. Now, she was asking how the state was expecting her to survive without a month's salary, less to talk of not being paid for 3 solid years. Now, as we speak today, Florence is still unpaid. She has frequented the Education Ministry, written letters, and been directed to Controller and Accountant Generals, and she still remains unpaid. Now, this is one part of the story, and that's my beef. She says the salary arrears not being paid, all her friends or some of her friends have been paid. And this is how they got paid, because they paid bribes. They got their salaries and paid 40% of all they got to some individuals within the controller and the ministry or wherever it is within that sector. And those people got their salaries because they agreed to give off 40% of the total of how many years they had remained unpaid. So in her case, 3 years. She was supposed to agree to give 40% of her salary, and that she would have gotten paid. She remains unpaid today because she will not do the wrong thing. So she's being punished for doing the right thing. In fact, at that time, among the messages she sent, which I didn't share, was that she can't even afford sanitary pads. And I say it today because I'm not ashamed to say it anymore. Why should people be punished for standing up for right and for doing the right things? And for those of you we pay with our tax money every month without fail, how do you feel that someone else is not paid 3 years, 4 years on, and they are still at post and working? And you are demanding that they give you 40% of their salaries for no work done, for you to push through for them to get paid. God is watching you. But more importantly, I think we ought to sit up. The people in leadership ought to sit up. This week I was moderating the Noble Law Symposium on laws that work in Ghana. And the speakers, Osei Mensa Bonsu, the Venerable, talk about Bright Simmons, also we had Kofi Abochi, who's the Dean, and then this very important name is escaping me, Akila Pasoya. they all agreed, we have good laws in this country, but those to make the laws work are just the ones who are the problem. So this is by way of my take. Florence has to be paid, and she doesn't have to give any part of her money. In fact, she deserves to be paid more than she's owed now. She ought to be paid with interest on her money. Thank you very much. That's by way of my take. And my guests are here in the studio, and I'd like to introduce them right away. So in the studio is Abdul Malik Kweku Bako. He's editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. He's our regular panelist. Also is Clara Berry Kasati. She is a law lecturer and the managing partner at Casa Law Firm. In fact, the last time I wanted to be sure, because you were teaching at GIMPA, you were also teaching at UPS. I don't know if you still teach at both places. You teach at GIMPA. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. And also joining us for the very first time on Newsfile, I'm sure, is Abna Osaya Sari. She's MP for Etiwa East and Member of Parliament on the Public Accounts Committee of the House of Parliament. Thank you very much for joining us. Great. I understand that we are to expect to enjoy some very great insights from you. Thank you very much indeed. Also joining us is the Honorable Rashid Pelpo. He is Minister of State in charge of Private Sector Development and MP for Wa Central. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much.
Great. Okay, so let's start by way of the preliminary issues we want to look at. And the preliminary issues we want to look at are the matters of concerning the BNI, who picked up Nana Addo, a photographer, and made a lot of claims about that. Also, we have the issue that concerns the Supreme Court stopping the NMC from continuing, from going on with the implementation of its content standard regulations, LI 2224. Let's hear Captain Koda. You know Captain Koda very well. He was recently also picked up together with the famous South African Three, because he is Nana Addo's chief security person, and he was supposed to be responsible for bringing them in the country. Now, he spoke to the arrest of the Nana Addo's photographer. Let's hear what he had to say.
I wasn't told, and therefore I didn't bring them. So I requested that they be allowed to go back home and consult their lawyers as to what to do. The BNI people agreed. We went and consulted the lawyers. A week after, we went and told them what the lawyers had advised, that they should not fill the form. Because it was akin to a police officer meeting you on the street and taking your details. That doesn't happen in this country. We don't have any such law. This was communicated to them. They said, okay, come back the following week. We went back yesterday. They asked whether what was communicated to them was what they were standing by. I said, yes, that is the advice of the lawyer. They deliberated for a while in our absence, called us back, only to tell us that they have instructions that I can go home. The two of them cannot go home because they have refused to fill the form. I left to go and brief my seniors, and we worked on it. We put certain things into motion. And at 11:30 thereabouts, they called me to come and collect them from the BNI. I refused to do that, telling them that they detained them so they can drive them home, take them home, or they should just open the gate, they walk out, and they know how to get to their homes. They're not children. They're adults. They can go home. Eventually, they got home between around 12. So that's the matter.
Okay, so for these two individuals, you're saying that the explanation given to you by the BNI for why they were being held is that they refused to fill the forms.
They refused to fill the personality profile forms. Yes, I specifically asked, why are they being? And that was the answer I was given.
Now, you say that you filled the form because you were a suspect. Suspect
Because
for what crime?
Because I was told I was a suspect.
For what crime, sir?
Well, they said I was conducting unlawful training with a group of with other people. So I've been charged with, or the charge they prepared against me is conspiracy to commit crime, to wit, unlawful training.
Okay. So when you are called at 11:30 to come collect the two gentlemen, who exactly placed that call to you? Do you know who you are speaking to?
I have a name. Yes, I asked for the name. I have a name.
Who is he, sir?
No, I wouldn't tell you. I have a name.
Okay. So for these two individuals who were released yesterday, do we know what their next line of action is? Do we know what Nana Akufo-Addo will do about this?
I don't know. I can't tell.
Okay. Okay. But for you, in the future, would you be honoring BNI invitations in view of what's happening?
Oh, yes. If they ask me to come, I'll go.
Okay. Okay.
If they have the right to ask me to come and see them, I'll go.
So that's Captain Koda, and the news as reported by the Graphic on the 20th of April was that the personal photographer and bodyguard of the 2016 presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party were this evening detained by the Bureau of National Investigations for complying with the orders of their lawyers not to sign personality profile forms presented to them by officers of the BNI. The pair, Kwejo Treme and Malik Nikwe, had accompanied Captain Koda, head of Nana Akufo-Addo's security detail, this afternoon to the offices of the BNI, where items taken from the residence of Captain Koda were to be returned to him. Indeed, at the time the items were taken from Captain Koda's residence, the two gentlemen served as witnesses. However, some 2 weeks ago, the BNI indicated to Captain Koda that the items taken from his residence were to be returned to him on condition that he brought along the two witnesses who were present when the items were taken. Upon arrival at the BNI office, the two were asked to fill out personality profile forms reserved for suspects, after which the items will be released. The two indicated to the BNI officers that they would have to consult their lawyers since they were only present merely to witness the return of the items taken by the BNI. After consultation with their lawyers, or their lawyer Nana Asante Bedietio, they were advised not to fill out the personality forms, but should only witness through the provision of their names and signature on the document containing the list of the items that were to be returned. Kwejo Treme and Malik Nikwe returning to the offices of the BNI this afternoon together with Captain Koda told the officers of the BNI the advice of their lawyers, which was explicitly not to fill the personality forms, profile forms. The BNI officials, acting on orders from above, quote-unquote, orders from above, then detained the two gentlemen for their refusal to fill the forms and proceeded to ask Captain Koda to leave the offices of the BNI. The BNI, we are told, have justified what they did and said it was proper, it was procedural and formal, and that they needed to take them through these processes because some of these people are persons who are needed for investigation. I'd like to start with you, Clara. Now, as a lawyer and with quite a bit of years of practice at your hands and also teaching the law, how did this come at you?
I was disappointed. Disappointed because for me it raised the issues of whether the BNI officers understand their powers and their duties under the law. Now, one thing that all people who are in public office or have been entrusted with any power of any kind from public office have to understand, first of all, is Article 1 of the Constitution. Article 1 of the Constitution is to the effect that the powers are supposed to be exercised for the welfare of the people. So the guiding principle at any time is this power that I am exercising. Is it for the welfare of the people? Is it for the protection of the community? Or it is arbitrary? Secondly, We are looking at the right to liberty of Ghanaian citizens. I don't want to treat this in political, because they are photographers of Nanado, but I want to treat it as Ghanaians because they are first and foremost citizens of the country. They have rights under the Constitution. Their right to liberty. The Constitution provides for how you can curtail that right. And when we are talking about curtailing the right, it's not just arresting the person. Anytime you detain a person, and in law it means that if the person cannot leave at their will, you have detained them. Right. So it doesn't matter what euphemism you put on the detention. Once the person doesn't have the right to leave at their own volition, but only with your permission, you have detained them. And Article 14 provides for procedure for detaining them. 1, you must inform them of the reason for their detention. 2, you must inform them of their right to counsel. From what I understand, usually their right to counsel is not even respected. And what was the reason? Because you must have reasons for arresting a person. It is provided for under the Criminal Procedure Code. Were they committing an offense? Are you suspecting them of having committed an offense? If that is the case, you have to inform them of the nature of the offense. Are they in the process of committing an offense?
Can it not happen
that
these two were witnesses to the search that was conducted on Captain Kode's home?
Yes.
And the items that were taken away?
Yes.
So they were mere witnesses at that point.
Yes.
Can it not happen that the security officials, upon further investigations, have a feeling or have some information to suggest that these people ought not to be treated merely as witnesses to the search that was conducted, but that they were needed for some further, connection to the process?
There's always a balance, because we need the security agencies to be able to protect their community and to get information. But like I said earlier on, there is a procedure. If they have a feeling, they have to inform them of what their suspicions are, and then advise them as to their right to counsel. It's a constitutional provision. There is no excuse. There is no provision under the law allowing anybody to detain, arrest, or restrict any person without telling them of the nature of whatever offense you are suspecting them of.
They were detained or restricted because they refused to fill the personality profile forms.
Yes.
Could the BNI not say that this is some obstruction, and that, as you know, constitutes an offense?
Fortunately, the law doesn't leave what an obstruction is to the discretion of anybody to exercise anyhow. If it is an obstruction, you have to point to where you are inferring that from. If a person is witnessing, even if you need their ID cards, you need authentication. You can make requests for ways for you to be satisfied. For example, playing the devil's advocate, or even giving the BNI the benefit of the doubt. You think they are not the persons they claim they are. You can ask for their identification cards to confirm whether or not they are indeed the persons they claim they are. You can make copies. But when you are detaining them, their rights, their constitutional rights immediately kick in, and you must comply fully with Article 14.
Okay. Kweku, Clara says, I want to look at the issue without putting it in the lenses that is being looked at by many, political. But people say you cannot take the politics away because of the potential of these acts to heighten political tension. You are dealing with persons who are associated closely for the protection or the security of the leader of the biggest opposition, a potential government in waiting.
Yeah. You know what? To be honest with you, this is yet another needless, avoidable action on the part of the BNI. In recent times, we've had problems with their conduct of operations relative to things actually indeed connected to Koda, Nanado, SC3, and all the rest. 2, 3 of them were completely avoidable and needless, poorly managed. And it created a pattern which we all were praying against, because we've moved on as a nation. So this action is needless, avoidable, and creates the impression that you are targeting political opponents, even though I'm not prepared to make that judgment for good reasons. But there are people out there who you cannot, prevent from thinking along those lines. And that is why the conduct of that particular agency must be such that it doesn't sow the seeds for such perceptions, even if they are unsustainable. So to be honest with you, it's an indefensible action. At what point in time did the two witnesses become suspects? At what point in time? All along, they had been witnesses to seizure of, quote unquote, of certain things. Now you are asking them, same persons, to come back for the return of the things into the custody of the original owner. So if they become suspects, then as Clara pointed out, there's a way to go about it. They ought even to have been invited or arrested by you before they even came under the pretext of being witnesses. Why the camouflage? Okay, so it's just it doesn't make sense to me. But I don't want a situation where we create a chorus of bastardization of a security agency. I've tried as much as possible to avoid that because we need them in terms of protection of us and everybody else. But this is unacceptable. Now, did they sign or did they not sign before they were released? Did they sign? At the end of the day?
Obviously not, because he said he insisted.
An exercise in futility. Because what's the legal regime or authority for that personality profile forms that witnesses must sign? So if indeed they have obstructed justice by not signing, why have you let them off the hook? It's just maybe show of power. And that's not good enough. I don't want to be tempted to accuse the BNI of indulging in arrogance of power, showing where power lies. Now you say, orders from above. I don't know if that was indeed said, but that's a report. You know what that means? It goes beyond the confines of the BNI. So then the politics become relevant. Even though I wasn't there, I'm prepared to be charitable, give the BNI the benefit of the doubt that they didn't say that. The action itself was not good. And you interviewed somebody, I mean, of course, unnamed source, which is classic, I know. The reasons they give was Araba Kumsin's broadcast. Yeah. What was it? Because of the anonymity, the person could talk anyhow. Okay?
But Kuku, coming just right after the SE3 brouhaha, and then also, you know, the bus rebranding, the National Security
Kamara,
Advisor, yes, Kamara issue. As we know, those people were left, and as up to today, they have not been charged with any offense. For those of you who are defending it, I hope you continue to defend it. Now, you, for example, were saying that those acts, for example, the president ought to have said something about it. Have we gotten to a point where we need to hear the president categorically condemn such acts? The GBA, for example, condemned these things.
Yeah, it was the National Security Advisor's conduct that I thought the president could have commented on it.
Right.
You know,
on the SE3, the president justifies their acts.
Interesting. I read it somewhere. Yes. I wasn't sure it was true. These days, I'm a bit careful when I read some of those things because I didn't hear his voice. But as for the National Security Advisor's conduct, I thought it would have been appropriate if the president did some commentary or asked him, even if on the quiet, to offer a public apology for his conduct. There are two ways. The president may decide not to do a public statement. You could call him and say, look, go out there, do an apology. It still mitigates.
Must he be heard on this one too, for example, because of what people say is the potential of heightening political tensions? And he must lead the way, show the way. He said to his other colleagues that they ought to be careful in the process.
Well, I wouldn't take that out of context. I wouldn't take it out of the equation. But I think this one, I don't put this in terms of the personalities involved, those triggering the misconduct. I don't put the security advisors on the same level as this. I don't.
Okay.
I would rather, if the Ministry of Interior, which I know is the ministry responsible for national security at this stage, would intervene and get BNI either to apologize or the ministry does the apology on their behalf. Because of the pattern, it's becoming a pattern. It's not good. We're heading towards an election. We need to create a situation where there's public confidence in all these security agencies. You know, and these things happening, especially when it's happening also in relation to some political things. It's just not good.
Okay.
I am not comfortable with it. Let me be very honest with you.
Okay.
You know.
You say you have a brief point. You make it, then I go to Doc.
Just to add to what Kweku said, I think maybe these issues are coming to the fore because of the people involved and because of the politics involved. But what about the ordinary people? This might, if this turns out to be a trend, it means that the ordinary people at the end of the day would have been suffering it, and nobody is talking about it because there are no politics involved. So I think it is important for the president not just to comment, but at least the president must hold his appointees accountable, including ensuring that at every point in time, his appointees respect and protect the people, because that's what they're there for.
Interesting. What do you say, Honorable?
Well, good morning to everybody. I think that this is a very sensitive matter. It's difficult to navigate between what is normally a legal issue and then what is a political issue. Because the issues you would want to raise will either be interpreted otherwise, you know, political or... Now, but let me first of all make this point very clear, that personally, I am very much pro the liberties and the rights of all people, no matter who you are. It is important that we uphold the rights of people. It's important that we uphold the rules of law that has been defined in our legal regime. It's also important that the security would have to respect that. But I'm also a believer in the fact that we are in a certain regime of doubts, of security concerns, and the uncertainty about who is going to create a problem for us hasn't been resolved yet. Ghanaians are all very sensitive to what is happening around us and very close to our borders. You don't know from which angle it can come from. So to have a heightened sensitive security is important for us. For me, the two who were arrested, sorry, not arrested, who were witnessed and were invited to give a personality profile. Is it an offense to give a personality profile? Will it cause anybody any harm? For you being a witness, they say, okay, you let us know exactly who you are. Is it something that is, can it harm a person? If it will enhance the work of the security, shouldn't we just let it go? Shouldn't citizens cooperate with the security? Should their lawyer be so sensitive that he will say, no, this is going to harm you, don't give it? For me, if at any point in time, any citizen of Ghana, if any security calls you, whether you are a witness or not, and they ask you to come and give a personality profile, in fact, we should have taken it, we should have had it long ago. The BNI should have the personality profile of every Ghanaian so that it can enhance their job. It will also be of benefit to you, because if something happens to you, they can pull out some information of somebody who you suspect and can follow it up according to their investigation. But if you say you wouldn't...
Okay, what I've been actually doing is I've been trying to find out what exactly these personality profile forms are about, because they come to me at first instance as a lawyer as strange. And I've been trying to read about them in other jurisdictions. And in Ghana, I'm not finding what the legal authority is for that process. There are very senior lawyers who are listening to this show and watching this show. Please, your inputs are welcome. Let's know particularly if it has to do with a mere witness. Do they have an obligation to fill a personality profile form? If personality profile forms are part of the due process, even for sureties, for example, if someone is standing surety for you. In this case, we're not standing surety. We're just witnessing the confiscation or taking of items and then the return of those items. So please share some with me by text message, and I'll share them with the rest of the world. We need to learn about what this actually is.
Yeah, there are two things you are talking about here. A strictly legal situation where you would want to find out why an investigator will ask for something. And an investigator who may be asking for something apparently innocuous, something that might not, you think, in your thinking, might not be necessary at all, but which he thinks will help in a final resolution of an issue. So you cannot resolve that by law. You can't resolve what is in the mind of an investigator.
You cannot, by law in Ghana, walk to anybody and feel, I need you as a witness in any matter, and I want to profile you. It cannot be done.
I'm saying that this is a specific situation you are mentioning.
Right.
I was talking about in a broad situation where an investigator looking at somebody, branding him or identify him as a witness or a suspect or whoever,
particularly
believes
witnesses
in the
must
end
offer themselves voluntarily, not under any compulsion.
Yeah, so if did they offer themselves voluntarily in the first place, or were they compelled to be witnesses?
They must have offered themselves.
If you offer yourself voluntarily, and you are asked to go through the process that the body that you have offered yourself to would want to seek information, you should still continue to be voluntarily avail yourself to offer the information.
Cooperation.
Yeah, cooperation as a good citizen, as an individual citizen who wants the good of the nation.
I see.
But if you introduce another element into it, and I support political elements into it, and to the point of even saying somebody from above, this is a quotation we have heard over and over in all regimes across board, especially when you want to introduce a political element.
That is true.
In the issue. So we can take that aside. Yeah.
What does it mean?
So
it means that the BNI thought that guys were violating a certain legal
That's why they were
regime.
detained.
Yeah. So
Which is that?
when I started, I said that I'm a believer in the liberties of individuals, all Ghanaians, all people. In fact, across our borders. Because the violation of any rights of anybody is a violation of the totality of the rights of all people.
Right.
So I believe in that. And it's only the BNI who can explain that. But I'm not going to support a situation where somebody who has not violated any part of our law would be detained for no reason. You know, there must be good reason, and I will encourage them to give the reason to the public. They're obligated to do so, so that we can still have the confidence and believing that when they order us to do something, it is for the good of the people. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And like I said, very senior lawyers listening to this show, please share your views with me. Former attorney generals and so on, you all watch this show. Please share your views with me. And then this is coming from Ace Ankoma. He says, if even suspects have the right to remain silent, how about people who are to witness the return of someone else's assets? That's where he ends it. Honorable, tell us what you also feel about all of these developments.
I'm sure, like we all said, they spoke to their lawyers, and then their lawyer advised them not to fill the form. Why did they advise them not to fill the form? Because it's a personality profile form, which we all know are for suspects. And they were not suspects in this situation. So, and for...
Just hold on 1 minute. Are you aware of personality profile forms for suspects in Ghana?
No, I'm not aware of such forms for suspects in Ghana. Okay. What I know usually is that they would ask the person to give their statement.
Yes, you give a caution statement. Yes.
But in your readings, you said the personality profile form was for suspects, like when you were introducing. That's what
I was asking if they were.
Yes,
because they appear to me as a strange element in our system.
They were advised by their lawyers not to, because they thought or they saw it as you being a suspect. So they were advised not to fill the form.
Okay.
But like Clara said, even if they are suspects, there's a way to go about it. There are procedures. So you don't take the law into your own hands. There are regulations that you have to follow. So for me, I feel, or I see it more as a political something than just BNI doing their normal work.
What is there to gain in picking up the photographer and this other guy is known to be, is it a bodyguard or something of Nana Addo? What is it about picking them up? For what political purpose?
No, Samson.
The BNI is not the president. The
and
BNI
my brother gets into
NDC.
trouble. And then my brother tells me, go with me to the police station or go with me to BNI to witness. And then you go and you going as a witness, you now become a suspect. And for they didn't even give them any reason. And like Kweku said, and like otherwise, no, they didn't say they were suspect, but they were arrested.
That makes it worse.
They were detained.
That makes it worse.
The word.
If you don't say that you are a suspect
yes,
and
but
you're
they
being
were
investigated
detained.
for ABC, Clara says you ought to have read out their Miranda rights to them straight away. The Article 14 of the Constitution is clear.
See, but I got the impression, I'm sorry, from Araba Kumsin's report, that the BNI said in the course of their investigations, they thought those guys were of some interest.
That is so.
Yes, so it means that the BNI had perceived them as suspects before they came for the return of the things.
That's right.
There are procedures, as Clara was saying, to indicate to them so that they know that they are suspects. Then there's a compulsion for them perhaps to behave in a certain way. Their lawyers to be there.
And then, like we said,
but
they
why
were
did they
detained.
release them?
And we
without
are,
them signing?
as we're sitting here, we don't even know whether they signed the form, but eventually they were released.
No, from what we know, they didn't sign.
They didn't sign the form, so they were released. So I see it more of showing somebody where the power lies than just going through their procedural way of doing things. And I think in this day and age, BNI, they should see themselves as a state organization or a state institution. We shouldn't let people perceive them as being for this particular person or this particular group. Because the FBI has worked with various governments, and nobody perceives them as working for this particular person or that particular person. Okay. But if you do it this way, you make people assume, like Kweku said, people will perceive that this is your agenda or this is what you want.
That's what I was asking. The BNI is not an extension of a political party.
Yes. So they shouldn't behave as such. That is all I have to say on this.
It's important that we have confidence in them. We need them. We need them for our own protection.
Right.
But they have to be professional in their dealings, and then that would help us to have confidence in them. And even, who knows, even voluntarily go there and give them information if we have it.
Right. Okay, so I'm still waiting for you to educate us on what these personality profile forms are, if they are applicable only at the BNI. I've gone there to deal with clients. I was never told of any personality profile forms. So I just want to be educated, please. That's all I'm seeking. Thank you very much. Now, let's listen to GIBA, the Independent Broadcasters Association, begin to celebrate what the Supreme Court has given them, a battle within a war they have started against the new NMC content standard regulations that's supposed to regulate media practice in Ghana. Media practice, I mean content. They ought to approve what content you have to give to the public before you can broadcast. So let's hear the GIBA what they have to say, because the Supreme Court has stopped NMC from implementing it. They should have started implementing it from the 28th of March or so, but it hasn't happened.
I'll say it's a victory for our democracy, a victory for media freedom. But this is just an injunction. So the substantive case still pens, and we are hoping that we'll win that as well. I mean, obviously, we are doing this because we feel that there are certain aspects of the regulation that are contrary to the constitution of the country. And so, yes, we'll keep fighting, but we're doing that with the background that at the end of the day, we should have a system that is sanitized, that will promote good broadcasting standards, and that's what we are hoping for. But if you bring in out the law, you have to make sure that it's consistent with the Constitution, and that is where we have faulted them. But it's not to say we are fighting the NMC. We are members of the NMC. We have a representation at the NMC. So we are not fighting them, we are fighting the law. And at the end of the day, we feel that what will come out will be something that will benefit the industry as a whole. Because at the end of the day, we still want to go back to the drawing board with the NMC and say, okay, what are the aspects that you don't want? How do we take out this one? What can we add? And all that. So it's a judge-job process. Unfortunately, as we were going through the process, they took the matter to Parliament and it became law. And so we were left with no option but than to go to court.
So the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association are in the Supreme Court, and they are asking, among other things, I'm reading from the Daily Graphics report of yesterday, and if you read page 3 of the Daily Graphic, they try to recap, Emmanuel Ebo Hodgson tries to recap some of the reliefs that they are seeking. They say, and this is what they write in there, in its writ to invoke the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, GIBA is seeking, among others, quote, a declaration that upon a true interpretation of Article 162, Articles 162, 167, 173 of the 1992 Constitution, neither the government of Ghana nor any state institution created under the Constitution, including the NMC, shall engage in acts or exercise any powers that are likely to amount to censorship, control, and direction of institutions of mass media communication in Ghana. No institution of mass media communication shall be criminally penalized for their failure to procure authorization for the content of their publication from the government or any state institution created under the 1992 Constitution, including the NMC. So these are some of the declarations that it was seeking, including that a declaration that the provisions under the legislation which prefer criminal sanctions upon infraction of the standard guidelines are legally vague and also inconsistent with the spirit and letter of Article 1624 and Article 167D of the Constitution. Now, the Supreme Court, in granting the interlocutory injunction, which means between now and when the matter is fully determined, the NMC cannot deal with the law or the law is not enforced. The Supreme Court said, quote, we find it just and convenient. We find it just and convenient to grant an order of interlocutory injunction restraining the respondent, the NMC, from enforcing the provisions of the LI 2224 pending the determination of the substantive suit. So this is what the court had to say, and the panel included Justice Sophia Kofu, Justice Joseph Akamba, Justice Anthony Benin, Justice Jones Doche. They tried to give us a list here. Justice Akoto Banfo and Justice Bafo Boni. Now, on this note, I'll start with Kweku because you are in this industry. What do you make of what has happened?
Well, as you have indicated to us, this is just an injunction at this stage. The substantive suit is still there. I'm not sure whether we are at liberty to go into all the details and interrogate all those issues. But instinctively, I have a problem with any sort of regime of restraint when it comes to media practice, whether in electronic or print. So my instincts...
But the Constitution itself provides some restraints, doesn't it?
Yeah, those are restraints that we've all accepted. I mean, beyond that, beyond those restraints, and even there's tricky as to sometimes there's debate as to what is really what really constitutes public interest, public order, and all those things. We've had arguments over that over the years, but those restraints that have been captured in the Constitution, I'm okay with it. Now, this is an attempt to bring some legislation to regulate, and to try and feed onto the constitutional restraints. And that one is subject to public debate.
This is to correct some of the things you and I continue to complain about, which is in the media, which we say is not good and ought to be stopped. I'll just simplify, just recap some of the things that it does. Protection of minors. Some media people don't follow their identity, even though at the GBA, at the GJA, there are guidelines, and the guidelines don't constitute law. So when the journalist violates them, there's no punishment. You read or listen to Chi or Akan, radio, and when they are describing rape, how they describe it, you sit there and you don't like how they go about it. So this is to provide protection for minors, broadcasting adult content during hours that are not good. They will be only broadcast during the watershed hours of 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. We know of the telenovelas and all the things that are happening during afternoon, just when children have closed from school and gotten back home. We glamorize cruelty. This law disallows it, inciting crime, encouraging exorcism, occult. You don't have to share opinions when you're reading the news. Privacy infringement, phone-in rules. They have brought in rules for phone-in. You don't have to encourage political tension, among others. We need them, don't we?
Is there any attempt to criminalize any of these things in the legislation?
Of course, you could.
I have a little problem with that.
You could get up to 5 years or 10 years in jail.
But I have a problem with that. Don't we have laws already in our statute books that deal with some of these issues you've raised? Do we not have such laws? Oh. But broadcasting, if you are broadcasting pornography, is there no law in this country?
There is.
Yes, there is. So I have a little difficulty. Look, I am sure the NMC does not intend to stifle press freedom. Indeed, even because of the person under whose chairmanship this matter was done, Cabral Bliamiye, is my professional mentor. His whole life has been a fight against, suppression of press freedom and media freedoms and all the rest. But there could be an unintended effect if we are not careful. Because if indeed the legislation, and I'm sorry, I haven't had time to study the legislation comprehensively, but if indeed there's an element of criminalization of all these things that you have elaborated on, I'm suggesting that there are already some existing legal regimes to deal with some of those ones. Why are we going to add more to it? It's like this spy bill matter, in a way. So let the law that exists deal with those things. This kind of legislation, I am instinctively uncomfortable with it. I have to be honest with you. Okay. When it comes to media arena, I agree, these days it's terrible. In fact, social media is worse, but we still are going to have to live with it. Very soon we might be asking ourselves how to regulate social media as well. And you see how Herculean that tax is. So to be honest, these are just my instincts.
Okay.
I don't support any attempt not just to restrict, but to criminalize. That I find very difficult to swallow.
Let me hear Honorable Purple. There are those who hold the view that there may be very good things in this law, but it appears that there's too much, appears to be too much incentive to make money and also to punish by, criminal punishment, as Kuku is talking about. And one of those areas, and I am one of those who support that view, is that they are supposed to do a monitoring of the airwaves. They will do the monitoring themselves. And if they discover that you are breaching any of the regulations or any orders that they have given or any notices they have issued, they will give you a notice within 7 days to remedy the breach. after you have remedied the breach, they will still go ahead and put a fine, an administrative penalty of between 36,000 and 240,000 cedis on you. That is even after you have corrected the wrong they say you have done. They may shut your station down. Revoking the license means you cannot operate. Revoking the content authorization license means you cannot operate because you'll be operating against the law. And where you may attract even the punishment of about 60,000 Ghana cedis, or to a certain extent 600,000 Ghana cedis, is it? Or you could get up to 10 years in jail. People feel, where is this coming from?
Yeah, first of all, we are looking at two issues about society, morality and the law. Can we allow a situation where the moral conduct of society is degenerated to the point where it doesn't matter when you defile a child and broadcast it as it is, showing the face of the child? I've seen abhorrent pictures of dead people, very respectable people. When they die, the first people to reach there would take pictures of them and are broadcasting them, you know, in the state of nature. And I've seen very apparently, you know, apparent pictures of pornographic positions of people being broadcast in ways that we don't normally would do as Ghanaians, or as people who have come to a point where we think that we want to live in a decent way. But these things are gradually becoming part of our lives. So you want to introduce a legislation to curb it. But I suppose that that introduction must also be in taste with society, so that you don't try to cure an ill and introduce another ill that eventually will offset the benefits of the earlier one. So I'm for establishing a good moral society, if we can, by whatever means we can within the boundaries of our laws. But I'm also eager to see that the freedoms we have been enjoying, which is punctuated by our freedom of the press, the media, should not also be taken away from us. So if it is specific to deal with this issue of moral decadence, which is pervading our society, it's fine. If it is about transgressing beyond that, then we will be questioning it. But as at the moment, apart from the strict penalties you have spelled out, I think that we should have a look at it to see whether we can have it in society, have the legal regime without it being overstepped by people who want to misuse it.
Okay. What do you also say about it? And the GIBA, part of their problem is that there's lack of clarity in portions of the law. And I have come face to face with that because I had to review the entire law for the purposes of educating through seminars, helping people to get ready for the implementation of the law, because we didn't want to expect that, wait and hope that GIBA will go and throw the law away. If GIBA is not able to throw the law away, it is with us and we have to use it. So Multimedia, for example, organize all its presenters and leaders to go through an education. And I realized even in my process to appreciate the law, not me alone, but the whole chambers, we had issues and we had to call NMC to ask them to explain those portions. The truth is that when the matter goes to court, it is not what the NMC will explain that will be used. It will be what the court understands. So even people in the industry don't understand. They say prior to the promulgation of the law and after the law was put into effect, there was no any effort on the part of the NMC to educate the people who are going to be using it.
Yeah, honestly, I also find it very, very difficult to understand what the NMC sought to achieve by this law. Like Ankweku said, there are already laws existing in the country to guide some of these things. So it's just about enforcing the already existing law. But like, I'm happy GIBA took it to court and there's been an injunction. So let's wait for the Supreme Court to do the final determination, and then we can take it up from there.
Kweku may say we have laws and everything, so they should let those laws work. Presently, the NMC, when I, as a journalist, I have offended you by my publication, you can report me to the NMC, and then they would go through a process of hearing. When they are done, all they can do is say, Samson, retract and apologize. That, they cannot punish me beyond that. And that one too, if I don't do it, they can't do anything to me, as the law stands now. But with this new introduction, if you don't obey the orders, you might even have your station shut down.
So, and you also admitted that they didn't do enough education. So maybe they should come back again, educate, because I really don't understand what they sought to achieve by this. If just
I'm giving you one example.
Yes, just
you don't think it's
penalties and sort of trying to let people sort of follow a certain regime, or just I really don't get it. This is just one of the things, but there are several. So let us appreciate it better by explaining things to us better. But I feel that there are laws, already existing laws. This is just one of them. But I mean, there are legal actions and other things that one can pursue. So let us rather enforce the already existing law. We like making a lot of laws and not, working with the already existing ones. So I believe that we should pursue, like Kweku said, let us look at the other existing laws and pursue them to the letter. And I think, I can't say there wouldn't be any need for a new one. Let's just wait for the Supreme Court to do their final determination, and then we can take it up from there. Okay,
Clara, you have the last word on this.
Yes, I think I'll begin with I've heard some people say that it's a victory for media freedom. And I just would want to explain. An interlocutory injunction is not a determination on whether or not the case has merit. From what I have read, the Supreme Court was looking at the balance of convenience and hardship, and said that if you look at the balance of convenience, it's more convenient to place an interlocutory injunction. That means that until the case is over, don't start it. And I agree with the balance of convenience, because there's a criminal sanction. So if you don't place an interlocutory injunction on it, and then somebody gets convicted before the case is concluded, and they happen to win, then what happens? So I agree that if you look at the scale of convenience, it's more convenient to grant it than to deny it. The substance of the matter, I would leave that to the Supreme Court to determine, because I believe that the Supreme Court would look at the rights that are guaranteed as against the responsibilities that we should have. But to add to what Abena said, I think the only way to look at it isn't necessarily passing laws.
Okay.
We could look at, what about self-regulation? The GJA and the NMC, is it possible for them to come together and have a code of ethics and provide in the code of ethics for disciplinary action?
Those exist.
They exist.
At the level of the NMC and also the GJA.
Are they being enforced?
Let's enforce
Does
them.
the NMC regularly organize seminars and workshops to even at least give refresher training to journalists as to what is expected of them? Both the responsibilities that come with the freedoms that they have been given. Does this happen, or is it the usual case of just letting things slide until something happens, then we get up all of a sudden and want to do?
Time and experience will heal some of these infractions. There's a mushrooming of media outlets out there, particularly in the electronic area. You know, it's now even more dominant than the print. And sometimes there's caliber, the skills of those who are employed. Because it's a newly emergent industry, we have that challenge of so many people getting in there, not understanding what the ethics and things are. Training is part of the process, refresher courses, but patience, time, okay, is important. I haven't been here for a long time relative to media industry. I always, I feel very uncomfortable when you are giving power, authority to either individuals or corporate entities to exercise over the media. I'm very uncomfortable with it.
Okay, so
it's dangerous, very dangerous.
Let me take a few messages and then we'll take a break. We'll return to then deal with the president's accounting to the people tour. Atu Kwame Nadazi mischievously keeps referring to it as accounting for the money tour. Now, Alexander Apau says, Samson, I never paid the 40% bribe, so I was not paid as a teacher after my first degree. I have left the classroom because I had a family to take care of. Please find time and have teachers on the show to tell you their plight in this country. It is harrowing. And that is in respect of my take today. Also, Seidu Mandihu says something. Thank you very much for sharing Florence's story. This is sheer wickedness. It is very sad. I also worked for 1 year and was paid for only 3 months' salary, 3 months' salary arrears. The rest of the arrears has yet to be paid. Whoever introduced that 3 months pay policy thing is killing the teachers. They should stop this, and that the media should help the teachers a lot more in this regard. Thanks for sharing Florence's story. You're welcome. Now, this is from, from Emmanuel Kofi Amwa. It says, BNI should act professionally and not as a party police. God is watching. There is a greater power. Then this from Samuel in Awoshi, Samuel Boabing. It says the BNI's action clearly demonstrates the desperation and frustration of the government. The danger here is that they are undermining the public principles of the rule of law. This extends to detention of Captain Koda. It must be condemned by all before it is too late. What do you mean by that? Baba says the actions of BNI was condemned when they arrested E.T. Mensah, but they did not listen nor change. Why do you think they will change today? Jesse Boakon says that, how will you account for something when you have no idea about the subject in question? We'll come to the accounting pretty soon. Musa Abator in Kumasi says, if anybody thinks BNI is not working within the confines of the law, they should take them to court and test the law. This isn't the first time they have done that. We are not in oligarchy rule nor dictatorship, but democracy. So I hope Clara or Kwekubako would test the law by going to court.
Ignore the court order.
Right. Okay, so you heard that. Kuku says they even ignore the court order. It says that this personality profile form introduced by the BNI overnight was an attempt to intimidate the two gentlemen. The BNI has now become a political intimidation tool under this government, looking at the way they have conducted themselves in recent times. It's time they realize that they are there to protect the citizenry and the state, but not to satisfy the political paymasters. Okay, and let's not be insinuating too much and making claims that we cannot substantiate. Ibrahim Kopa in Tamale says the BNI should know that they swore an oath. That's what you wanted to say. You wrote they swore. They swore an oath to serve the country without favor from any quarters. As such, the BNI should not allow themselves to be cajoled to do the whims and caprices of any government, all in the name of political party hanging on to power through backdoor. Okay, thank you very much for your message. We'll take a break here. When we return, we will see how exactly the president has been accounting to Ghanaians. He's come under a flak for abusing incumbency, and also for the comments that he made that it appears that Ghanaians have simply lacked the skills to tap into, to find ways of taking advantage of a growing economy. We'll be right back.